Hi, I'm Ashley with Campbell. Thanks for investing your time to help your community be a great place to live. Before you watch the video, make sure to click the subscribe button so that we can help you make educated decisions as a board member.
Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you here. We're going to have an action-packed session on creating harmony, managing conflict in community associations. Whether you're a seasoned community association manager, if you're a board member, or you're just new to the world of condo and HOAs, you've likely experienced the tension and frustration that can arise when people with different perspectives share common spaces and responsibilities. This course is approved for Florida DBPR, 1 hour CEU, and CAM ICB CMCA. If you need your credit for CMCA, please send me an email. It will be at the end of the presentation, my email address, but I'll give it to you now so you have it. So you will receive a 1 hour credit for your CMCA renewal. And that is marcy.kravit@hotwiremail.com. So I can ensure that I have your information to submit to the CAM ICB. So this class is designed not to just check a box, but it's to equip you with actionable tools. All these relatable stories I can share with you, and hopefully you'll come away with some techniques to navigate more effectively and before it derails your community. There's a lot to cover, so I suggest you enter your questions in the Q&A, and I will answer them at the end. Most likely, if I haven't answered it throughout the slide presentation, which I probably will because there's a lot of information here, I will allot some time for the Q&A. So by the end of the session, I hope you'll have a better understanding of how we can get to the root causes of conflict, how to communicate empathy and clarity, and how to, most importantly, lead with confidence, even when tensions are high. So let's get started. And remember, conflict isn't the enemy. Conflict is an opportunity. It's for growth. It's for better governance. And it's where stronger communities tie together. Well, before we dive in today's session, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work that community association managers and board of directors do every single day. You are the unsung heroes. You are the ones that navigate these challenges. You're there to solve problems. You're there to build stronger communities. And it really takes more than just management skills. Let's face it, in Florida, it's a 2-day class. And pretty much when you finish that class, you have the information that you need to take the CAM license test. But it really doesn't prepare you for what you really need to know. And I hope that today you'll learn some best practices. My name is Marcy Kravit, and I've spent over 2 decades in this industry, and I've worked alongside boards, residents, and management teams. And I've always strived to thrive in creating a well-run community. I currently serve as a Senior Director of Community Association Relations in the developing markets here at Hotwire Communications. I'm also the Vice President of my board in Bermuda Springs in Weston, Florida. I also serve as Vice President of the Community Associations Institute's Gold Coast chapter, where we help shape policy and we educate for our industry. I'm also a contributing writer for the Florida Community Association Journal and a published author of Common Sense Community Management. I also teach the pre-CAM license course as an adjunct professor at the Palm Beach State College. So boards and managers, you are responsible for taking complete ownership of the day-to-day responsibilities and managing a property. And the bottom line is that you need to be able to gain the trust of your constituents. And
Hey, Marcy, just real quick, I don't know if you're screen sharing yet, but I don't see anything if you are.
oh, Okay, thank you for
Yes,
letting
it
me
wasn't
know.
sure, but I was not seeing anything.
Okay. How about now?
No.
Okay, let's try this again. So sorry for the technical difficulties.
Now I'm gonna see it. Perfect. I've got it.
Fantastic. All right.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, I'll go to the next slide and let's make sure that we've got you covered.
Yep, looks good.
All right. Thank you. All right. So in this course, we will be exploring the common causes of conflict that arises in your community association. And we're going to be going over communication skills, effective communication. It is the heart of conflict resolution. And we're going to cover techniques to ensure clarity, empathy, and most importantly, active listening. We're going to look at strategies that promote collaboration and helping your teams make decisions, even in tense situations. And then recognizing conflict early is the key. We're going to discuss signs to watch for and how to address issues before they escalate, and talk about a conflict management plan. Does your community have one? How do you develop a conflict management plan? And how do you tailor it to your community association's needs? So the real cost of conflict is decreased morale and productivity. When tension becomes the norm, your residents disengage. It also causes staff burnout and board members lose motivation. Who wants to volunteer in a toxic environment? It's going to happen, disagreements among members, board members, and management. You live in such close proximity, it's a given. Persistent conflict really creates a hostile environment, and it's just not comfortable and it's unsustainable. It can damage relationships among your community members, and it can damage the reputation of your property. It can hurt your property values. Word spreads around quick. A divided community becomes known for its dysfunction, and it really hurts both the image and, like I said, the property values. And when it's unresolved and it escalates, it can lead to unnecessary legal fees, property damage, and costly turnover. I can tell you that I managed a property that there was such a conflict over a concrete restoration project that everything was on hold, and the property looked like it had been hit by a bomb, and people had to live with boarded up windows, and they just couldn't come to a compromise. So what's the most significant long-term cost beyond just the financial that you've seen in your association due to an unresolved conflict? Now, conflict really isn't just a sign of failure, it's a call to action. It's going to reveal that the communication has been broken down, and where trust needs to be rebuilt and where leadership must rise. Everyone needs to understand that there are causes and there's potential for an opportunity, and this devastating impact, if it goes ignored, it's going to create a situation where your community could fail, and it could really hurt property values. It could hurt sales. So let's talk about the emotional vampires. These are those individuals who consistently create negativity and the drama and division. I mean, they're, you know who they are. They drain the emotional energy of those around them, and they thrive in chaos. It's almost like they just can't wait for it to come. Now, don't take the bait and set boundaries. Stay professional and be consistent, and focus on solutions and not the personalities. Stay ahead of the game. I always say, have a leadership mindset. And what I say is, leave your ego at the door. It's not always about being right. It's about what's best for the community and doing right for the community. And I know it's hard, but don't be impulsive. Don't be reactive. Just pause, reflect, and just think about, what is everyone thinking? What is going on? Why is there conflict here? I mean, these individuals that are your emotional vampires, they can really upset the apple cart. But it's our job as managers and board members to foster trust, transparency, and teamwork, and to remain professional. I say, if you're a manager, always have an open door policy and be open and encourage constructive feedback. Celebrate the small wins, share those small wins with your community, and any positive contributions that are given from homeowners, include that in a newsletter. Be consistent. So I talked about that we need to build trust and confidence. And here are some common types of conflicts that can occur in community associations. Some causes could be that you have limited resources or you have budget constraints. We're all suffering from all these new in Florida, we have all these new legislations that are coming down the pike with mandated reserves. So that could cause a conflict. And then you have your inspections and you have to bring your property up to speed, and you have limited resources and you have those budget constraints. So that can cause conflict. Disputes over property use or the maintenance or how often maintenance should be done. You have communication breakdowns, you have misunderstandings, you have violations, non-compliance with rules and regulations. These are some of the root causes of conflict, but it's our job to govern. And if there's a governance issue and the conflict arises regarding the governance and the decision-making process, this is going to be an interpretation of the bylaws, and it is the authority of the board of directors to implement violations. And when there's financial disputes, well, financial issues can lead to conflicts because there may be disagreements of the budgeting, or maybe there's a special assessment coming down the pike. Your dues have to increase, but being transparent is most important. And when it comes to disputes of the maintenance and the repairs, these things can occur, but just keep in mind, as a board member, you have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the property. And people buy into community associations because they want to live in a place where they know it's going to be maintained, preserved, and protected. So when it comes to the common area amenities and the shared facilities, there could be conflict over that. And then there's always going to be neighbor disputes. So community associations there could be noise complaints, there's pet restrictions, and then just plain behavior violations. Architectural control. Now, conflicts may arise regarding architectural guidelines, the restrictions on the property. Maybe there's improvements in landscaping changes that were done without approval. So poor communication between the community association's leadership and its members can lead to misunderstandings, and it can lead to mistrust and conflict. And then it leads to legal disputes. And if you're involved in a legal dispute, those fees can get out of hand. So how do you resolve these? And I always say, rely on the experts if necessary, professional assistance, like from your manager, a mediator, legal counsel may be necessary. In some cases, you might need to go to mediation and arbitration. But conflict isn't always a sign that there's something wrong. It's a sign that something really needs attention. And I used to have some of my residents come and complain. And at first, when I started out in the business, I used to get on the defensive and I would, in my mind, already form my opinion. But what I've learned is that it's natural to do that, but you have to train yourself to not react. And you have to just listen and know that you're going to be facing something that maybe this person has a great idea. It shouldn't be an issue. Now, there's different types of conflict. There's intrapersonal conflict, and this is like an internal tug of war when someone is struggling with their own values and decisions or their role. And it often shows up as an indecision or a passive aggressive type of behavior. And then the other kind of conflict is interpersonal conflict. This is the classic neighbor versus neighbor or board member versus resident. And it gets personal sometimes, it can get emotional, and it's often the most visible that we deal with on a regular basis. And then when it comes to an intergroup conflict, think board versus residents or committees clashing over priorities. It's about a group identity, it's about power, it's about influence. And then what you have is called organizational conflict. And this is systematic. It's conflict rooted in unclear policies, poor leadership, and broken processes. And it's not about the people, it's more about the structure. So when there's issues and disputes, like say the pool hours, the pet policies, how you're going to use your shared spaces. There's conflict when there's new rules or when rules aren't followed. I mean, conflict is normal in community associations. It's not about if the conflict is going to happen, it's really about how we respond and when it's going to happen, how are we going to deal with it? Because it is the fabric of our community if we don't have morale and trust, and we have to have an understanding. So I always say, describe what is bothering you and diagnose it. And before you do that, describe and prescribe. And think of a recent conflict in your community. Was it interpersonal? Was it intergroup? Or was it organizational? What was the root cause and how was it handled? Professionalism. Now, I talk about professionalism a lot in my book, and at the heart of it all, the guiding principle that allows us to navigate these complexities as being board members and managers is it's just not about the tasks. It's about bringing people together. It's the residents, the board members, the staff. We have to work as a cohesive team. We're all striving to provide the highest level of customer service, and it's about creating a lifestyle, enhancing the lifestyle. It's not just maintaining the property, it's giving your residents the lifestyle that they deserve. So think about a time when office politics or community rumors significantly interfered with an important association project. How might a deeper understanding of those dynamics have changed the outcome? Putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Now let's talk about those moments when someone is rude to you, or they argue with you, or they create that unnecessary drama. It's absolutely essential to put yourself in the other person's shoes and show that you care. Think about what they are thinking and ask yourself, why are they behaving that way? This isn't about condoning bad behavior. It's about gaining perspective to respond strategically and professionally. I once had a resident who was consistently aggressive during board meetings, constantly interrupting, disrupting, making personal attacks. And instead of reacting defensively, I tried to consider what might be driving that behavior. I later learned that they were facing some severe financial stress and felt unheard on a critical assessment issue. Well, it didn't excuse that behavior, but understanding the underlying stress allowed me to approach them with more empathy. I was able to really show that I cared. I had a private conversation with the resident, and it led to more respectful dialogue. It's amazing what you can uncover when you look beyond the surface of anger. So when a resident's behavior feels personally offensive, what's one immediate mental shift you can make to put yourself in their shoes and respond professionally rather than emotionally? We all know that there's rumors and there's gossip and there's complaints, but we shouldn't look upon them as problems. And I used to say to my staff, we don't have problems, we have situations, and we're here to find solutions. And now, when it comes to your staff, rely on them because they are the ones that are boots on the ground. They are the ones that are going to help you when they hear the underlying current of what's brewing. And for some reason, it always happens at the pool. There's something about those pool people, they always seem to know what's going on, or they seem to generate unnecessary drama, rumors, and gossip. So I always say, reframe your brain and don't think of things as problems. Think of them as situations. And how are you proactively going to address it? So let's start with a fundamental question. I don't know how many of you have read this book, but it really made an impact on me. And this brilliant author, Simon Sinek, explores starting with why. What is your why? We all know what we do. We all know when we get up every morning what we have to do. And we manage communities, we handle budgets, we enforce rules. We all know what we do. We know how to do it through processes, through software, endless meetings, but knowing why we do what we do, well, that's the leading edge. It's the belief that inspires us. It fuels our purpose and ultimately it makes us leaders. And as managers, we're on the front lines. We're committed to serving our residents. And Bill Gates has a quote, and I absolutely love it. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. This isn't just a nice quote, it's profound truth in management. And I can't tell you how many times I've learned from residents that have complained and have brought things to my attention. I mean, residents feel they have the right to be heard, they have the right to be angry. And what they don't have a right to do is take that anger out on you, especially when you've done nothing to contribute to it. But here's where your why comes in. When you encounter a resident expressing discontent, think about it. What is it that they're trying to get display? What are they trying to say? Maybe it's a misconception, maybe it's a misunderstanding, or maybe it's a perfectly legitimate complaint. Your first job is to acknowledge them, give them that eye contact, and listen. Don't interrupt them. Sometimes they just want to be heard. They just need to vent. And then don't get on the defensive and just try to be stoic and listen and not react. Because if you defend them and they start yelling at you and then you're trying to interrupt, and then it's just going to become a screaming match. So listening is going to help you uncover the root of the problem. Think about a recent challenging interaction you had with a resident and how might focusing on your why could have shifted your approach. Anger is an emotional reaction and it needs to be acknowledged, not dismissed. When you know your why, your core purpose in serving the community is it helps you stay grounded in those moments. It allows you to develop that trust and show the residents that you really do care and that you're really there to make it right and help them. We're all on the same page. We're all here to have a harmonious community. So a lot of you as managers, and I know I felt this way when I'd wake up in the morning, why am I doing this? Every day is an adventure. And that's normal. But establishing that self-awareness, that core purpose, it supports facilitating what your goals are and navigating that drama. And then you build the confidence and trust. So what's Think about it. What's your why for being in community management? Take a moment to reflect what truly inspires you to do what you do daily. Knowing your why will help you. It will help you with navigating the drama, and it'll become like an anchor that keeps you steady when the waves of those resident frustrations crash. It allows you to approach conflict not just as a problem, but a situation with solutions to be solved. All right, now that we've explored that conflict really does happen, let's talk about the when. Because in community life, it's not a matter of if it will arise, but how we choose to address it when it does. Now, effective conflict management is a layered process. Before we can resolve anything, we have to understand it. And that starts with recognizing the early signs, those subtle red flags, like those repeated complaints, changes in resident behavior, or tension at your board meetings. So, what are some of the earliest red flags you've observed that indicate that there's a conflict brewing in your community? And have you ever thought you knew the cause of the conflict only to discover it was something entirely different? So once the conflict is identified, you need a plan, not a scramble. A proactive conflict management plan helps you stay ahead of those issues before they escalate. And early detection is the best. So I always say encourage open communication and anonymous reporting. Do you have a way that your members can communicate with you anonymously if they don't feel comfortable? Have you trained your staff and your board members spot on to see those early warning signs? And do you have clear procedures in place? Have you defined everyone's roles and responsibilities of who handles what? The board, the manager, the committees, everyone needs to know what they do. And then if there is a conflict amongst any of those, if you have to get a third party mediator, I highly recommend it. And then set timelines for response and resolution. Now, training and education is, I'm a big advocate of it. And I say if you need to, call in an expert and provide conflict resolution training for your managers and your board members. And offer workshops for your residents and resources for your residents on communication and de-escalation. Sometimes they just need to know what their roles and responsibilities are. Because when you have an orientation with a new resident that comes in, especially here in South Florida, we have different cultures, everyone's from different countries, everyone has different opinions. And that orientation process is really just a welcoming. But if you have a formal training and education, everyone can understand, who is responsible for what. And then if you have to, call in a mediator and have a dispute resolution committee if necessary, and have someone on the committee that is impartial, and that is not going to form opinions. And then you determine when you need to get your legal counsel involved. And I would say track every conflict and make sure you document all of it from start to finish when you have these meetings. How many of your associations currently have a documented proactive conflict management plan? Now, once a conflict is active, you'll need to choose a strategy to resolve it. So first, you want to have negotiation. And then if necessary, if it gets out of hand, call your legal counsel. And they may recommend mediation and arbitration if the negotiation doesn't work well. And it's always good for the board to be able to have that one person on the board that is neutral and doesn't form opinions. You always have one that's able to talk calmly and listen actively and can help with that de-escalation, and have the manager present and have a witness and have them focus on some solutions. And then always stay calm and be respectful, even if others aren't. I say it's best to listen, to understand, and just not respond, and focus on common and shared goals. So, which of these techniques is hardest for you to use when you're personally involved in a conflict? Um, Conflict, it isn't always negative, but when it's handled well, it leads to stronger policies, better communication, and a more resilient community. Your role is not to eliminate conflict, it's to guide towards constructive resolution. So let's talk about strategies. Number one, familiarize yourself with the governing documents. These aren't just your dusty old books and papers. They are your community's constitution. They outline the rights, the responsibilities, and the very rules that govern your association. And this is going to be your map. Knowing them inside and out allows you to address conflicts based on all those guidelines, and it's not about personal opinions. Now, moving on to proactive communication. What type of communication do you have in place? I mean, this is about getting ahead of the curve, and don't wait for residents to ask. Inform them, keep them informed. Communication, newsletters, emails, websites, regular updates on everything from maintenance schedules to board decisions can prevent misunderstandings from escalating into those full-blown conflicts. So what's one piece of information you could be communicating more proactively right now that might prevent a future resident complaint or a conflict? Now, you don't want to make residents guess how to complain. So provide a clear, accessible channel. Do you have a specific form? Clearly communicate that process for how those disputes will be addressed. Transparency here builds trust. It manages expectations. Now, if a new resident moved in today, could they easily find and understand your association's formal process for submitting a grievance? Do you have your governing documents on your website? When was the last time you and your board truly read your governing documents cover to cover? Now, if you have to hire a mediator, I say do it. As managers, you're often the neutral third party, and your job is to remain impartial. But having a mediator will help guide them toward getting to common ground. And again, it's about finding solutions that benefit the entire community, not just one side winning. So when mediating, what's one technique you could use to ensure you remain impartial, especially when you might have a personal opinion on the issue if you're ending up becoming the mediator? Now, another strategy is professional networking. Now, you don't have to be an expert in everything. Everyone knows that in management, there's so many areas, and I commend you for being here today and educating yourself. I say build a robust network of trusted experts that specifically work in this space. Those professionals like association attorneys, specialized mediators. These contacts are invaluable resources when you face these complex conflicts that are beyond your scope, or when you simply need just a second opinion. Beyond your immediate team, who is the one professional in your network you could call right now for advice on a tricky conflict? And how often do you actively nurture these relationships? And then finally, continuing education. The industry is constantly evolving, and staying updated on the trends, best practices, legal changes, it's non-negotiable. Invest in yourself, invest in your team through conferences and expos, seminars, workshops. There's so much out there. The more you learn about conflict management and you're informing your residents of what's happening and what are the trends, the better equipped you are in engaging and serving your community. So what's one new conflict management technique or legal update you've learned recently that you plan to implement in your association? Okay, well, everyone knows in community associations, we have parking policy disputes. And this is, I'm not going to go through the whole thing for sake of time, but I can tell you that this one conflict, it seems to be written into the DNA of every community association when it comes to disputes. And it's a tale as old as my time. My car, my space, my right. I had an association member that had his treadmill parked in his parking space, and he said it was a moving vehicle and that he had every right to put that in his space. I mean, there's been so many scenarios I could sit here all day and talk about it. But this particular scenario is about a new policy that's, and this is really a good example of how you go about dealing with new policies and how you can avoid conflict. So this scenario is a new policy restricting overnight street parking. And this immediately leads to tension and dissatisfaction of everyone. And, nowadays everyone has multiple cars and they have generations living with them. So what happened? Well, the association was proactive. They held regular town hall meetings, they had newsletters, and they had a committee. And the goal was to get everyone feeling good about the decision and everyone engaged so they could feel that they weren't living in a vacuum and that this wasn't a secret society meeting. I mean, it wasn't just beyond announcing the new policy, but it was giving everyone a voice. And they also implemented a survey, and everyone was open to listen to what the options were. And they also talked about having a consensus and talking about what everyone thought would be the best solution for this no overnight parking policy. And the situation did not escalate because everyone had a say. Everyone was provided the opportunity and to listen and speak on what they felt about no parking. And so there was a situation where they had an overflow parking lot. So they said, let's have a moratorium on this parking policy, and we'll have this third, this third option where we could have an overflow with people parking overnight at the pool parking area and see if that works. I mean, the goal was to find some middle ground and have a trial period. And they were extremely transparent in documenting everything for every meeting and communicating with all the residents. So this was very helpful because it prevented conflict. I mean, beyond parking, what other common association policies should be subject to regular scheduled review and adjustment? So this was something that they said, we're going to have a regular review and adjustment, and we're going to get resident feedback and see how this is working. Remember, conflict resolution, it really requires patience. It requires a lot of listening, empathy, and to find common ground. We've talked about identifying conflict and having strategies in place, but now let's zoom in on the most powerful tool in the conflict management toolkit. And that is, like I talked about, communication and handling different conversations. I mean, let's be honest, no one likes difficult conversations and they're unavoidable. I always say start with a positive tone, and you could say, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. Or focus on the issue, not the person. You could say something like, the noise levels have been affecting others, not you're always inconsiderate. And say, I feel concerned when, instead of you always do this. Just stay calm, and even when the other person isn't, like I said, try to be stoic and be professional. Think about a difficult conversation that you've avoided and what fear held you back. And how might these tips help you face it differently? Active listening is probably one of the most important things that I say, because sometimes you just need to sit back and they just want to be heard. And you're showing that other person that they just want to be heard. And then don't blame, never blame, just stay focused on the issue, not the emotion. And then nonverbal, your body speaks the language and before your mouth even does. It could say the wrong thing. So I say never show crossed arms because that shows you're on the defensive. Raising your eyebrows, that shows judgment. And having a calm tone, open posture, eye contact, that shows respect. So when you're stressed, don't show it when someone's talking to you. And then in our digital world, most important, written communication. Whenever you have a conflict with anyone, I say document, document, document. Especially in our digital world, written communication seems to be the first point of communication, and sometimes it seems like the only form of contact, but don't put up with those keyboard warriors because you don't want to respond to that. It's always better to pick up the phone and say, look, I'm here for you. Let's set a time and let's set some uninterrupted time. I will make sure that I shut down my office and I'll tell my assistant that I'm not going to have any interruptions and I will focus on that person to listen to what they have to say. All right, let's move on to compromise. Now, we've discussed identifying conflict and using effective communication, and compromise is essential in conflict management, and finding a solution working for everyone is really something that it may not be ideal for every party, but it's going to identify the common goal and the interest. So what do both sides really want? Think about it. Beyond their stated positions, they may overlap and they may not realize it. So I encourage open and honest communication. And this goes back to the previous slide where having that communication and open dialogue, building that trust, building respect, and then considering different perspectives. Now, can you recall a conflict where focusing on a shared underlying interest, like help bridge a gap between two opposing resident viewpoints? I had a situation where I had a resident that was making noise upstairs in the middle of the night in a high rise, and the person downstairs couldn't take it, and they took a broom handle and was making noise, trying to get the person to stop. I ended up having a meeting with the two of them, and we ended up coming to a compromise. That person did not have rugs, so we put rugs down, and when they saw each other on the elevator before we had this meeting, you thought they were going to kill each other. But once we had the meeting, they were able to come to a compromise. Everything was pretty peaceful. We've established the communication is the foundation of conflict management. It's not just the manager's job. Everyone is involved. You've got the residents, you got the board, the staff even plays a role, and the manager is there to play mediator and also enforce any rules and regulations. Basically, the board provides clear guidelines and the residents must be willing to engage. Now, like I talked about, active listening. A resident is agitated about that new parking rule. So what's ineffective? By saying, say his name's Mr. Johnson. The rule is clear, you can't park there. Well, that's super ineffective. You don't want to say it that way. You want to say, Mr. Johnson, I understand you're frustrated about the new parking rule, but just to make sure I understand, are you concerned about where visitors will park, or is it more about the timing of the change? So here you're getting to the root of it. Here's another scenario. A board member proposes a costly project and they don't give much detail. It's really ineffective to say, oh, that's too expensive, we can't. It's better to say, President Jones, if I understand you correctly, your proposal for that new landscaping project, it really aims to improve the curb appeal and potentially improve our property values. Could you elaborate on how you envision that to impact our current budget and on our long-term reserves? Now, doesn't that sound better? Now, how often do we truly listen to understand versus listen to respond? What's the biggest cost to our communities when we fail at active listening? Can you recall a time when simply summarizing a resident's complaint back to them and reiterating what they said, even if you didn't agree, instantly it will de-escalate the temperature and the tension? Now, here's another technique: nonverbal communication. It's ineffective to cross your arms, it's ineffective to frown or sigh loudly. Maintaining that open posture, that calm eye contact, and being empathetic with your facial expressions and have a low, even tone of voice is going to go a lot further. And physically step back to have space between the person that you're communicating with. It's ineffective to just rush through an explanation and fidget and try to get through it and delivering bad news. But if you maintain steady eye contact and you're speaking clearly and you're using hand gestures where you're emphasizing those key points, it projects confidence. And despite it being a difficult message, you're coming across professional. So when you're feeling stressed or defensive, what's a common nonverbal tell you might exhibit in how you consciously override it? How can a manager's nonverbal cues, like your posture, your eye contact, inadvertently escalate a resident's anger? And even if your words are polite, it just doesn't come across well. And then written communication. I always say it's great to send a notice to memorialize what you said. Now, what's ineffective is saying, your dog left poop again, clean up or else. Instead, write something like, dear resident, this letter serves as a reminder regarding the community's pet waste policy according to section ABC of the rules and regulations. On such and such a date, pet waste was observed at this location, and it needs to immediately be removed and properly disposed of. And then these continued violations may result in fines per policy. Thank you for your cooperation in maintaining our community. Now, doesn't that sound better? So that's it on the communication slide. Let's move on to managing chaos. Now, all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the herd of elephants in the common areas: association politics. And we all feel it, right? I mean, we have elections. I mean, it's our job to govern. And let's be blunt, managing associations inherently is political. And it's like trying to run a small town where everyone is your landlord, your tenant, and your critic. I mean, we conduct elections, we hold board meetings, and residents are, they have their own agendas sometimes. And choosing not to deal with it is like managing in a vacuum. You have to deal with it. Now, do not be so concerned with being well liked. This is tough, right? I mean, we want happy residents, but being liked doesn't always result in positive outcome. You can control the chaos, not by being the most popular kid, but by establishing self-awareness, managing as a professional, and sticking to the facts. You can control the negativity. Talk to your staff, find out what is the buzz that's going around the community. Is there a petition from Brenda in Unit 3B about the new building color? You need to know. Tell your staff to feel comfortable coming to you and not to discuss it with the residents. They should just, I don't know, if you have any questions, go to the manager, always, because your staff could also be your worst enemy because they could stir up rumors. And just let them know that you're there to support them, and be professional, be respectful, and draft that newsletter and print the facts before it gets out there. Everybody needs to know the truth. Be approachable, be transparent, because as a manager, you're the eye of the storm. You must maintain your professionalism and composure and control the chaos. You're in the driver's seat. and it's your role to serve the community. I mean, let's face it, your business card should say professional hat wearer. I'm sure we all can say that we've been the plumber's assistant, a therapist, a residence, computer expert. Everybody relies on you. So, which of these hats do you find yourself wearing most often? Ultimately, managing the chaos is about eliminating it. It's about being the calm, being that professional center. Now, 5 ways to handle conflict management. I'm going to go. This is just a summary. I'm going to spend too much time on this. We're going to get a copy of the slides. I mean, we've talked about the chaos. We've talked about the hats, the occasional rogue homeowners. Now, in order to be strategic, you want to recognize your mission as the sole star of your organization. I mean, at times, the board members and the organization's leader can get lost in their own points of view and stumble. But taking time to make sure that your mission is front and center and ensures that toxic behaviors don't poison your organization success, that should be your goal. Now, recognize your mission. And then the next one is be purpose oriented about conflict. Now, when board members and the organization's leader agree upon any new procedures, they're reminded out of this process that it supports alignment. It really inspires all parties to work together. So everyone should know what their purpose is. Before you jump in to fix something, just understand what the real problem is and its impact. Is this just a symptom of a larger issue? I mean, get the board aligned on the why behind that resolution process. When everyone agrees on that desired outcome, it's like amazing how everyone can really be cooperative. And then think about, how often do you find yourself trying to resolve the symptoms rather than the root cause? And focus on interest-based solutions rather than positive-based solutions. And be curious. So think about, conflict can become volatile. If it feels like it's one-sided and only one side is listening and the other one isn't, if you go into a meeting thinking that you're right about a situation and your opponent is wrong, you're closing off that opportunity to see the issues from his or her perspective. You're not allowing that person to have their opinion. You're just focusing less on having the answer and I mean, you're focusing more on just your answer, but you have to focus more on listening. Now, when it comes to a third party, most conflicts have stages. There's the first stage, the conflict is interpersonal. It can be resolved with direct dialogue between the differing parties. And then if resolving the conflict is not successful at this stage, it moves from the individual to group dynamics, where everyone develops allies and factions emerge. The differing parties coalesce around their opinions and positions. And at this stage, it would really certainly help seek advice and talk to your board on how to address the disparity. And then working with that third party, get someone that sometimes you need a referee, sometimes you need a coach, and sometimes you need a mediator. A neutral third party can really provide objective advice, and that's someone that's totally disconnected from the situation. So don't be afraid to call in the cavalry. We once had a dispute over a shared barbecue grill, and that escalated into a full-blown neighborhood feud, and it was complete with passive-aggressive notes, accusations of grill hogging, and we ended up having to bring it to a mediator who I swear had to use a whiteboard to diagram who had used the grill and when and who was responsible for cleaning it. I mean, it was absurd, but it really worked. Sometimes you just need someone from the outside to say, are we really fighting about this? And then here's 10 steps to diffuse angry residents. We're running out of time, so we talked about this. I want to get into real quick types of bullying. We spent a lot of time about conflict resolution. I mean, this is the most extreme form of bullying, physical bullying. There's verbal abuse in bullying. And when a heated dispute escalates, I always say, bring in the attorney. It causes a lot of harmful effects of your community. And the best way to address the bully is just talk with them privately, and then don't criticize them, criticize the behavior. So I'm going to skip over this. There's a lot of information here. I could do a whole class on bullying, but I want to have time for Q&A. And I talked about when to bring in your legal counsel. This would not be possible if it wasn't for Hotwire Communications. And I just want to say thank you for coming today. I mean, we're not just a provider, we're a partner, and we're an independent fiber optic telecommunications company, and we were founded in 2002. And when you're ready to talk about internet and your television solutions, I'm here for you. So let's get to the Q&A. I'm sorry we ran out of time, but like I said, there was a lot of information that we covered. I want to thank you for joining us. Remember, it's all about unity and community, and we're all powered by connections. And let's just keep building and connecting and growing together and stay connected and stay inspired. We covered a lot of ground, from understanding your community's unique needs to exploring the options to create harmony. It's like an orchestra. It's like all the sections of the woodwinds and, the horns. Everyone needs to come together. All right, so let's go to the Q&A and see if again, I apologize I ran out of time. I had a lot of information to cover today, and I've added a lot of information because as I travel around giving this presentation, I get a lot of questions. So let's take a look at the Q&A. What's the best step to take for residents that email in complaints a few times a week, mostly rehashing old issues? Is it mediation? Well, that depends. It depends on what the complaint is about. And I would try to meet with that person and have a witness. I would definitely say if they just keep emailing, then it's probably better to have a conversation. Have to disagree on 2 points. Mediator, arbitrator, a waste of money. Well, it depends. Just lost that one. I would say it depends on the situation. And sometimes it's better just to get your attorney involved. As far as the property manager being impartial, you can't be serious. There's no CAM in the world that would take the side of an owner over the association board. Owners don't pay their salary. See, for attorneys, accountants, and auditors. Okay, that's more of a statement. What if we do not have an active property manager in our office? I would say try to come up with a way you can have an email box where they can send their questions. What to do when an officer provides one-on-one orders that the board has not approved and they're not given authority in governing documents? Well, I have to say that I always say, come up with a board of ethics, a board code of conduct and ethics, and everyone needs to sign off on that. And you can get your attorney to help you with that board code of conduct that's specific and geared and tailored for your community. And that way everyone is on the same page and they understand the chain of command. Should I speak directly with the past president that always has a problem with me as the new president? She is still on the board in a different position. Not sure what that question is. I always say communication is best. Always have a witness if you're in the middle of a discussion with others that is a conflict, get everyone else involved. How does a manager balance the need to address an owner's concerns when the owner wants to dominate a manager's time and be heard, but the manager has critical work to be done? It's important to manage complaints, but there are times when a manager just doesn't have the time to address. When I was managing, I always had a specific day and I blocked out specific time to give the residents. Sometimes I would have a coffee clutch and just have everybody meet with me on a monthly basis. And this way they could all feel comfortable coming to discuss anything that was on their mind. That might be something you want to consider. We have a 96-year-old owner who used to be on the board. He continues to call the town or vendors trying to give direction and is very meddling. Everyone always has one of those. Some board members want to send a cease and desist letter. What do you think? That's something I think you need to get your attorney involved, because owners do not have the right to give direction to vendors. What happens if a board member uses a vendor for personal services in their home? As a board member, do we have the right to ask for proof that the service is being paid for? Well, that's, again, a sticky situation. You may want to come up with a policy. I mean, the law is very specific when it comes to any type of monetary anything that a board member is not permitted to take any type of services or monetary money from anyone. And so you need to get to the root of that problem. Let's see. When does it become, let's see, where is it? Let's see. One president is a control freak who yells and swears at female residents in the parking lot. Small community, 40 units, no one wants his job. If you're married, you are safe, free from his ranting. Need to get to the root of that problem. That president, probably you might want to consider removing that person as a president and making them a director if they continue to mistreat the residents. What to do with a board member always arguing with other board member? Again, that code of ethics is your key, and that code of conduct. How would you handle assigned parking spaces where there's no proof the spaces have been assigned to a unit due to how long the unit has been owned, but new owners have a condo rider indicating an assigned space number? Well, that sounds like a legal matter, and you may have to go back into the public records or look into, if you have the association records of when the association was first established, at developer turnover, to determine whose space is whose. I hope I got to all of your questions. Let's see, there's one more. When does it become abusive in your opinion? When residents don't follow the processes that you've outlined for addressing problems that arise, or for things that are reported, and continuously call and report the same thing when it's being addressed. Again, I always say have that one-on-one and try to get to the root of the problem. Sometimes it's better just to have a conversation and find out what the underlying issue is.
Thanks for watching. For more great educational content, click the subscribe button now.